It finally happened, you guys. The hammer just came down on Jim Harbaugh. You know, the not head coach of the University of Michigan. It came down on him real hard. Not the University of Michigan. This is for the original NCAA violations. We're going to talk about it. It's so absurd to me, but we're going to talk about it on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. It's the real Wednesday this time. We're back into it at Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire. Through USA Today Sports Media Group, I had a full show planned on things the players said, especially coming out of this morning's press conference, because it was very enlightening. However, as I was putting together my outline for the show, suddenly news drops from Angelique Shingelis over at the Detroit News. The NCAA has come to a punishment for Jim Harbaugh with the burgergate violations. And let's just read it to you before I opine. So I think it's really interesting here. Former Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh has been punished by the NCAA with a 4-year show cause and a 1-year suspension for violating head coach responsibility obligations, unethical conduct, and failure to promote an atmosphere of compliance for his role in an investigation into impermissible recruiting in 2021 during a COVID-19 dead period. The NCAA released its final 52-page public decision from the Division I Committee on Infractions on Wednesday and said Harbaugh failed to meet his responsibility to cooperate with the investigation. The show cause order is from August 7th, 2024 through August 6th, 2028, and if hired during the show cause order, Harbaugh would be suspended for 100% of the first season of employment. I'm going to skip down a little bit here and say, get to where it says Harbaugh can appeal the decision per NCAA bylaws, which he 100% is going to do, even though he is not in college and is not coming back to college. There's no way Jim Harbaugh comes back to college, number one, right? There was one college he would come back to. He came back to it. He got it to a national championship. And then he did what everyone always said that he was going to do, which was go back to the NFL, which suddenly it's funny because he goes to the NFL and everyone's like the horror, right? Like the shock of it all. It should be noted Harbaugh and the 5 staff members, Harbaugh was not one of them, earlier this year reached an agreement with the NCAA enforcement staff regarding recruiting and coaching by non-coaching staff members, and Michigan agreed it failed to monitor the football program. Michigan was given 3 years of probation, a fine of $5,000, plus 1% of its football budget, and a number of recruiting limitations. John Harbaugh was not part of that agreement, right? So, again, and it states later, according to the NCAA's release, Harbaugh's violation during the recruited dead period were level 2, but his provision of false or misleading information is a level 1, the harshest levied by the NCAA. So we've plowed this ground quite a bit. You have to go back to January 2023 for most of it, and then a little bit in July of last year, and obviously August, because Michigan self-imposed the 3-game penalty on Harbaugh in hopes that they'd be able to satiate the NCAA, who was reportedly seeking a 4-game penalty. This is why when I talk about the bowl ban stuff and I say it's speculation, right? That was speculation, even with that even if it came out of the NCAA's mouth via Yahoo at that time, that they're seeking a 4-game suspension for Jim Harbaugh. That's clearly not what they wanted, because ultimately they brought the hammer down. They really did. But we kind of knew that this was a little bit of a witch hunt. Now, this, again, if you need to recall a little bit, our stance, which still is maintained here a year and a half later, was that Harbaugh, in some ways, with the burgergate part, the misleading investigators and all of this stuff, that it was a he said, she said, essentially, because Harbaugh says, I don't recall that. they said, oh, you bought this and you did for this burger for somebody, which is why it's called burgergate. And he said, I don't recall that. And they said, you're lying. And he's like, I don't remember. And as I said at that time, he's been hit on the head a million times over, so I'm going to give him that benefit of the doubt. And I also said at the same time that if it was found that he did willfully lie, which I haven't read the 52 pages, so I don't know that they've necessarily produced evidence that he knew about it and lied to them. But if that is the case, then you get the punishment you deserve, right? That's where I stand with it. I think it's hard to prove someone saying that they don't know. That's why I give the benefit of the doubt here, because if you say you don't remember, it's something that is relatively minor. A head coach certainly has a lot of responsibilities on their plate. As I said, Jim Harbaugh has been hit in the head a lot as a former quarterback, both in college and pros. So it stands to reason that he legitimately would not remember in my eyes. If there is evidence to the contrary, then cool. Now, certainly this is going to get people all riled up. Of course, this comes out when it came out, right? It comes out right before the documentary, again, as the NCAA continues to try to shape the narrative as far as, that dastardly Michigan and every single bad thing that's ever happened in the world is due to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. I think that the timing of this is obvious. I want to remind you that the NCAA has shaped this narrative all along, because none of the parties that it's accusing anybody of, with all of this have been able to respond. So they've controlled the frame the entire time. Now, again, Jim Harbaugh very well could be guilty of this. I think that a 1-year suspension and 4-year show cause that far exceeds what I would have anticipated for what the supposed crime is. I'd have to look, and we were going to real quick, because I'm just curious. What Jim Tressel got. I know obviously he left Ohio State. So I guess it's relatively similar, because Jim Tressel had misled investigators. The punishment involved, again, misled investigators about essentially playing in what ended up being deemed ineligible players due to impermissible benefits. That's the key when it comes to all this, is ineligible players. For the people that want to say the hammer's coming down on Michigan itself as a program, scrap the program. You really need ineligible players in order to do that. And that's not the case here. But for Jim Tressel, he got 2 years. Ohio State vacated all the wins. I had a postseason ban in 2012. 2 years of NCAA probation, and then Jim Tressel had a 5-year show cause. A show cause doesn't mean you can't coach. It essentially means that you have to, as Angelique says it better than I could if I'm off the cuff. So a show cause penalty is the way the NCAA makes certain a punishment of a coach is transferred to any other member school that hires the individual while the sanctions remain in effect. The school and coach must report to the NCAA every 6 months until the end of the show cause penalty. So it's basically come and see your probation officer every 6 months. And I fully expect Jim Harbaugh to appeal this, and his lawyer Tom Mars. And I wouldn't be surprised if he took it to court, especially now that he's in the NFL. I know you would think it would go the other way. Like, he'd be like, whatever, I'm in the NFL now. I don't need to worry about it. I think that Jim Harbaugh's ego would not let that happen, because he is Mr. I follow the rules. I understand rival fans are going to sit there and says, but he broke all the rules. And it's like, okay, that's your interpretation of a lot of this. I've seen some of the comments on YouTube about, my head of the snake being Connor Stallions. Well, the head coach is the head of the snake. Okay, but didn't know about it. You didn't know about Connor Stallions, right? And that's an argument that we're just going to disagree on. I don't begrudge you that argument, as I said before. But when it comes to being a rule follower, I mean, this is where Jim Harbaugh got in so many disagreements with others. And you look at the intent to deceive penalty. Why did Harbaugh lose his ever-loving mind in 2015 against Rutgers, it was because he was essentially accused of not following the rules. This is who this guy has always been. Now, has he broken rules? I'm pretty assured that he has over the course of his time in college and pros. There's a lot of rules. And whether he did so willfully or unknowingly, that I think ends up being the argument. Because he's not going to allow his name to be sullied in such a way. So I do believe he is going to fight this tooth and nail. That's what I believe. All right, let's finally move on to fall camp because we got some interesting revelations from players. I'm actually going to go ahead and play you audio and video of two players talking about the offense. I think this is really tantalizing, some of the things. And then we're going to do a little bit of a mishmash discussing the transfer wide receivers and the safety depth because those are two areas that I particularly am interested in. And like any odd HD person, I only want to talk about what I'm interested in. So we'll get to those things here in just a moment. But before we do, listen, there's still some time this summer and you're going to want to get downtown. You're going to want to get outside. You're going to want to go to the ballpark. The best way you can do that is through Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, and with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. So many things I love about the app. I've always talked about the views from your seat, but the zone deals is a very cool way to be able to save a little bit of cash. You can just choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats, and you'll save money that way. And with their lowest price guarantee, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference if you do find someone else that has a lower price. So take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, I hope that we don't talk about any NCAA stuff for a little while. We probably will, because we've got this documentary coming up. I'm a little nervous about it. Not because of anything it portrays Michigan as. You'll figure it out why I particularly am nervous about it. You'll figure that out day of, certainly. Nonetheless, hopefully we're done for a little while. I'd like to talk football. That's what we care about. I understand it brings in the clicks. It brings in the rage bait for the rival fans and all of that. But that's not the world I want to live in. It's kind of like the Hamilton thing. Can we get back to politics? Yo. All right. Interesting stuff, I thought, from Tyler Morris and Quentin Johnson kind of corroborating this. So Tyler Morris says that Kirk Campbell is opening up the playbook, and Quentin Johnson agrees, says the offense actually beat out the defense. I don't know if this is going to work the way I wanted it to. It's where I was going to be able to drag and drop this. Oh, well. All right, so let's hear what they have to say. Roll the clip.
I'm excited. He's going to open the offense up a little more. Maybe we'll throw in some things and try some things that maybe we hadn't in the past couple of years. I think he's a great coordinator, real smart, and he's definitely going to give us multiple ways to attack defense. I want to say there's a lot of major changes, but I think we're trying a lot more. We got a lot more put in. I think open the playbook a little more. I think especially going into this year, we're going to open it up more. Obviously, Michigan's been known to run the ball, but, I think we've shown on multiple occasions we can throw it too if we need to, and we're going to do what works. If you come here and throwing is working, then we're going to keep throwing. So it's really just up to the offense. We're going to go with whatever is working best for us.
We've seen them all practice. We do a lot of overs deep, but, yeah, yesterday the first day of pads, and they've definitely caught a groove. It's good to see, but camp is offense versus defense. Day by day is who's going to win, who's not going to win. So we would say they won yesterday, which is good to see for when we go and put the pads on against somebody else. But at the defense, we want complete domination every day. So I'd leave it at that.
If this is actually true, I mean, that is absolutely ginormous in so many ways because, number one, the offense is always behind the defense in one way or another. Now, if you have an absolutely putrid defense, that might not necessarily mean that it looks great, right? But when you have a defense that is certainly anticipated to be among the best in college football, I mean, that is major. That there's a potential that the offense is actually starting to find ways to move the ball. I didn't add it in that clip, but one of the things that Quentin Johnson talked about was the versatility of the quarterbacks really adding fuel to it, right? Because you've got different guys who can stretch the field with their arm. You've got Alex Orji, who, depending on the report that you check out, might be ahead of the game when it comes to all that. I think that was Sam Webb that had that. But Davis Warren, according to Chris Ballas, is supposedly in an absolutely incredible spot himself. So, but there's versatility there. So they're going to have to kind of decide if they stick with one, what they want the identity of the offense to be. But that's what you needed to hear in some ways. And the way that I'm believing this is, especially just given the depth of some of those rooms on the defense, given the coaching staff and giving the personnel in general, the way that I look at it is the defense is still the Michigan defense that we've come to know over the last 3 years. But the offense is still, in a way, the offense, right? And what Tyler Morris is saying there as well is, even though he's saying, like, we're going to open up the playbook and we're going to do these different things, we're still of the mentality of if we need to throw to win, we'll throw. If we need to run, we'll run. But it does sound like Kirk Campbell has he is looking at it of like, okay, I'm the offensive coordinator. Let's offensive coordinate. Just try to find ways to really attack, right? Like they're not going to necessarily say like what I thought was maybe the likelihood of this particular team of, well, our strength is certainly without a quarterback, without an established wide receivers room. We would be best to lean on an offensive line that might be a little bit more inexperienced than the last couple of years, but with running backs that are a bit more experienced. And we know that that's been our bread and butter. So let's just go ahead and lean on that and we'll see where we go from there. Doesn't sound like that's the case, which is certainly necessary because if Fresno State can move the ball and be in a shootout, I don't know that they will without Jeff Tedford, but certainly that's the type of team that, despite being a group of five unit, has that capability within it. And knowing that Texas is in week 2, and then that Arkansas State's probably going to have a similar mentality in week 3. If you find yourself either in a shootout or in a situation like last year, because I don't know how this would have gone last year if you didn't have J.J. McCarthy, because Michigan suddenly couldn't run the ball. And you had to rely heavily on your quarterback and the receivers, and it looked really good in weeks 1 and 2, not so much in week 3, but they got the job done. So I think that this is a positive development if they are opening up the passing playbook in particular, but still maintaining the identity of, we're going to beat you through land or air. Pick your poison. We can do both. We can do one or the other. It's going to be up to you, and we're going to find a way to exploit you one way or the other. It's, again, I like to liken back to the 2004 Pistons. That's one of my favorite teams of all time. And it just kind of felt like, okay, you wanna stop us on the perimeter. You're going to stop the 3-point shooting. Well, we'll hit you with the mid-range with Rip Hamilton. Okay, you're going to stop Rip Hamilton as well. Well, we're going to hit you down low with Rashid and Ben. Right? Like we're going to also get you defensively. We're going to get you every single way that we can. You can figure out the way that you're going to play us, and we're going to react accordingly with all kinds of other options. You're going to be able to kind of slow down our starters. Well, here comes Mike James, Corliss Williamson, and Lindsey Hunter, and Memo Okur, right? Like that's kind of where you want this Michigan team to be. It kind of has that same type of mentality of defense first, and then we've got enough offense to be able to kill you. that boa constrictor that PJ Fleck and Joel Klatt talked about. I think that they still might maybe have that, but I also hope that they are able to be a little bit more robust in the passing game, because I think that benefits them long term, as long as they don't get away from the ground and pound identity, because I think you still absolutely need that, and they still will certainly have that. All right, let's talk about the safeties as well as the 2 wide receiver additions that came in via the transfer portal post-spring, because I think that those are very interesting things to get into. So we will get into those here in just a moment. All right, let's finish out here. There was a lot to take in today. I haven't even barely scratched the surface with it, to be honest. But nonetheless, I think that there was a lot of stuff that was like top of line. I said to myself, like, let's get home and write these things. I cranked out 5 articles from the press conference real quick. I think 5. Catch those out on Wolverines Wire. Yeah, I did 5. But there's more. Like, I asked Kalel Mullings about the running backs, obviously, but like, you know, how did the linebackers look, and as well as just kind of how he's able to kind of gauge his own performance as well as linebacker performance due to his having been in that room before. And then also like Josiah Stewart and Tyler Morris both had big plays in the Rose Bowl about how that maybe helps their confidence moving forward. Maybe more important for Tyler Morris, because that was his only big play was the touchdown against Alabama in the Rose Bowl. We talked about that 2 days ago or yesterday. No concept of time here. So first, let's talk about the wide receivers. This is it's almost like Tyler Morris is responding to the Instagram commenter who told me on one of my posts that CJ Charleston isn't going to play for Michigan. And Tyler Morris responds to that by saying he's definitely going to play for us this year. Be careful what you put out there, especially because I understand I have some bigger accounts. I mean, my Instagram's got like, it always teeters under 7,000. The more I talk about Jesus, the more I lose in terms of follower count, and I don't care. 33,500 on Twitter. I still see the things you people say, okay? But Tyler Morris says he's definitely going to play for us this year. He's made some real good plays this year, and obviously being a newer guy, you might watch him a little more just to see what you're getting from him, and I'm confident in him. He's smart. He's an older guy. He kind of knows how college football works, so he's picking up on things fast. He's making plays. He's definitely somebody that as fall camp is going through, like, I'm confident in him. I think he's definitely going to be out there to make plays for us. Keeping in mind, Charleston has 2 from 2019 to 2023. He missed 1 year, which was 2022. Has 200+ yard receiving games. Not the most incredible production against Ohio State and Michigan State when he played against them, but still managed to catch for 7 yards against Ohio State, 3 catches for 18 against Michigan State. So he at least knows what it's like to go up against those types of teams. That was a good Michigan State team too. Probably not facing that this year. So I am encouraged, and I think that it will be exciting. Like, they didn't just add him, a guy that's running out of eligibility, so that he can sit on the bench, right? You're going to see him at some point. Amarian Walker is interesting, obviously, because he's been here. He's been around. He's been a wide receiver at Michigan, finally playing at the position under the coach who recruited him there, because keeping in mind, he came in 2022, and Ron Bellamy was he was the wide receivers coach at that point. So he's back there. I forgot because I was thinking Gaddis in 2021. Nonetheless, interesting stuff that Tyler Morris says about him. He says, I think really just showing what he can do as a receiver. He's super fast, probably the fastest guy on the team, and just getting a little more comfortable running routes and really just showing his potential. I think that's really just been the biggest thing. I think coming back, we didn't have him in spring ball, so you forget about that. And then he comes out there and does some things, and we're just like, okay, well, we need him this year. We can really use him this year, and just excited to see what he can do. If he is, in fact, the fastest player on the team, that's great, especially being a wide receiver that is 6'4". Michigan absolutely needs that downfield threat as well as that open field threat. So it'll be interesting to see what he is capable of. I will say that over the course of the last month or so, it's like hearing about the wide receivers. I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling completely depressed about this in terms of evaluating the position. I think there's a lot of potential between Tyler, who showed you can outrun all of the Alabama defense, SEC speed, able to just outrun everybody. Samaj Morgan, who is a little freak show. That was another thing Tyler Moore said, like we're going to use him in different ways, other than just being a gadget slot guy. Then you have Fred Moore, who also showed he can outrun an entire Michigan defense, speed and space and all of that. And then you add in these transfers, and then Kendrick Bell, who scintillates me. He's the inflection player, as I said before. I think that that's really exciting. Equally as exciting is the safety room, which is kind of the opposite in terms of the experience quotient, because you have a room that is 100% full of experience. And when you keep in mind that there was a point in time within this calendar year that you were thinking, all right, well, Brandon Hillman, next man up. And we're like looking at a tweet from him after Rod Moore got injured and everything. And you're like, okay, well, let's see it, like it's Makari Page, Brandon Hillman. All right, let's go. Second year guy, that I guess it's his time. And now you're like, oh, I don't know who's going to play because there's just so many bodies in two spots, right? If you count in the nickels, which you kind of don't here, like Zeke Berry, right? Like you expect him to be a nickel and be out on the field. But I mean, it's a third safety, I guess, if he's out there. But now you're looking at you're trying to figure out who are the two starters next to him. Really, just one starter, because you already know Makari Page is entrenched. So who's going to be the guy? Is it Jaden Mangum, Quentin Johnson, who's obviously been around Michigan and going into his 6th year, Wes Walker, who started at Tennessee, and then if Rod Moore comes back healthy, there's him, and then obviously we talked about Brandon Hillman. It's a lot of people, and the thing that Quentin Johnson says about it is like, guess how you get better. Like, we don't hold anything against each other. There's no animosity. And the best part of it all is the competition makes you the best version of yourself. So we need this. Like, once the season's done, we're going to walk off the field and say that was the best I could be. He said that's going to help us prepare for the NFL, not just for NFL competition, but just to get better to get in the NFL, but also the NFL competition. I think it's just as exciting when you have a room that has that much. Like, that is the room that has got the most depth, the most experience. It's just absolutely wild. So I'm excited about that group. All right, we've got more press conferences tomorrow. I don't really know the timing of tomorrow's show because I know we've got both. I think we got both football and basketball tomorrow. So we'll figure that out. But we'll definitely have a show. That's our priority. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.